What is up, my homies? Video number 2 coming at you from the top turnbuckle. So my last video absolutely blew up more than I expected. I feel like I have a purpose and a responsibility now in the Star Wars YouTube space to keep making videos, you know?
I don't know, I guess I've become something of an icon.
I was thinking, what would be the logical next step for a video topic? And, it hit me. Controversy. So, yeah, let's rank all the Star Wars movies and from worst to best, and then we'll go from there. Let's try to make this video shorter than last time, yeah? Yeah, you thought I was going to start with Rise of Skywalker or Last Jedi. Guess again! I'm going to be fully honest, I fully forgot that these movies existed before looking up all the Star Wars movies to do this list. Like, I was going through all of them and I was like, oh, those nightmares exist. I forgot. And now I'm getting reminded and the PTSD is back. Now, esteemed viewer, you may be wondering, why are these two movies together? They're two different films. They should be their own ranking.
Ask me.
Where did you find it?
Well, funny you should ask.
Well, it's because I don't want to rewatch them and review them separately because they're shit! Back in the good old days of primary school, people used to say I was weird because I'd say the worst Star Wars films were the Ewok films. And no one knew what I was talking about. You're telling me we couldn't get the James Mangold Boba Fett R-rated film, but we got not one, but two reasons why God doesn't love us anymore? The only memorable thing I remember about these movies is, I think it's the first one where there's the giant like spider things, and that's only because I was terrified of those as a kid. The whole first movie is the little girl and her brother trying to find their parents, and they find each other at the end. It's all happy. Ewoks playing their songs. And then the second movie, literally the first 4 minutes, the whole family dies. Death, destruction, whole family dead. And that's their story. And then it's just the girl, and she runs into the guy from the diabetes commercials. There's a Power Rangers villain that looks like Evil Ash from Army of Darkness. And apparently there was some witch lady. I don't remember this shit, man. And you guys thought Jar Jar Binks was annoying? Look at this little bastard. Teak. This annoying little shit, which can apparently tap into the Speed Force, is just throughout the entire second film. And it's just annoying. And they're bringing him back into canon too. It's awful. I hate it. I'm gonna play a clip of this guy, and you tell me if he's annoying or not.
What's that? Trouble.
Imagine only ever seeing clips of this thing for like 20 years, wondering what the hell is going on. And then you have some good friends decide to host a holiday special watch party and they invite you. Friends. Could you still call them that after being exposed to the psychological warfare that is this film? Look, whatever you've heard about the holiday special, it's true. This is what the Satanic Panic should have been about in the 80s. The metalheads, the D&D players, they were fine. It was this travesty lurking around the corner that no one saw coming. And look, if you don't believe me, imagine the following content. Imagine, if you will, Mark Hamill looking like an average Joe from Alien Isolation, Leia coked out of her mind, suicide pacts with the Wookiees to go to the Life Day tree, Grandpa Chewie watching this weird shit on his Oculus Rift, Han giving the weird eyes to Chewie's wife, and Beatrice Arthur doing a musical number. There's a reason why Lucas and the cast don't like talking about this, and it shows because it is terrible. The only saving grace is being Boba Fett's first appearance. But even then we hit that weird part of an animation at times with everyone else, and honestly the holiday special should count itself lucky that the cartoon section is the only reason it's above the Ewok film. Yeah, look, this was just shit. Terrible. And look, I hated The Last Jedi, and we'll get to that very soon, don't worry. But I feel like I would have enjoyed this film more if it went down the road of the concept art and the original plan of being Duel of Fates. Like, that actually sounds like it was a story, not this crap. I mean, if you read the original plan, it actually sounds pretty interesting. I mean, Rey using a double-bladed lightsaber would have been a great callback to her in Force Awakens using her staff. Kylo being haunted by Luke's ghost and eventually becoming a full-blown Sith Lord. That would have been awesome. But no, Rey always felt like anything she had to deal with, she could easily overcome because she never had any flaws as a character. And instead, we got all these stupid things like the slug guy, they fly now, all these space horses, all these stupid scenes and characters that just no one cares about. I still think the biggest crime with this movie was making Hux the spy for the Resistance. It's stupid. And you're telling me that this guy here, this guy,
will bow to the First Order and will remember this as the last day of the Republic!
You're telling me this 1940s German leader wannabe betrayed his regime because he doesn't like Kylo Ren. I also hate that they bring back the Emperor. I feel like they should have kept Snoke as the main villain. Because I love Andy Serkis. He always brings his A games to any role he's in. And I think it just kind of I love seeing Ian McDiarmid back. Love the guy. He's excellent as the Emperor. But maybe if you want to include him so bad, why not include him as a Force ghost, like a Sith Force ghost, like Darth Bane in Clone Wars? I do want to bring up some things I liked about the movie. I did love the Sith Troopers. I think their design was awesome. A bit wasted, but awesome. I like seeing Ben Solo turn to the light side. I loved his fight scenes, even if it's a little bit at times. I love the cameo by Harrison Ford. I know a lot of people are confused if it's like a dream or rather a Force ghost. I'm just going to go with it's a dream because that Han Solo down with the Force is odd. But, in saying all that, the Skywalkers I feel like they get screwed over so badly in this film. I would have loved if Kylo Ren or Ben Solo survived at the end of Rise of Skywalker and then spent the rest of his days trying to atone and find redemption. And I think if Rey, instead of calling herself Skywalker at the end, embraced her heritage of Palpatine and used his name as a force of good, as a real FU from beyond the grave, But alas, this is the Star Wars trilogy we go out with, and I don't know. The fan reaction speaks for itself.
Already bailed.
The film that brought all Star Wars fans together in hatred. So, a quick little relevant story. A while back, I saw the movie Jungle Cruise starring The Rock. And I went to the bathroom and came back, and I asked my wife, hey, did I miss anything? She goes, nah, nothing. And suddenly, a sword or whatever gets pulled through The Rock's character, and he's revealed to be immortal like a minute ago. To which I turned to my wife quietly and said, what the hell? That's nothing! Similar thing happened during Last Jedi. I went to the bathroom during the scene when Finn and Rose free those racing camel things. Come back to Luke on the ground explaining why Ben turned to the dark side. And I turned to my wife and I asked, did I miss anything? No, she replied. And upon attempting to rewatch this film, she was right. I actually missed nothing. I could have walked out and never come back to that film and still don't feel like I missed anything overly special. The only reason I have this placed slightly higher than Rise of Skywalker is because I enjoy Luke versus Kylo in that scene where he's force projecting. But even then, it's just a worse version of all other Star Wars films rolled into one. You got a shittier version of the Battle of Hoth. You got a shittier version of Return of the Jedi at the end. It's shit. I think what makes me hate this movie more than I did before was because of The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, where Luke, even though I don't like him being in the Book of Boba Fett because it doesn't make sense, he still feels like Luke from, the end of Mandalorian and of course the original trilogy. you know? It just hurts seeing him become this bumbling hobo. You know, the son of the chosen one, everyone.
You suck!
I think a way that could handle Luke's story just slightly better would be to include that deleted scene where he learns that Han is dead and takes that moment to reflect. And also include in that moment how Luke, with his own struggles of nearly killing Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi, could connect that to how Kylo killed his father, Han, and see this is what I would have become if I didn't come back to the light in that moment. And seeing this pushes himself reluctantly to begin training Rey. And as Luke trains Rey, he eventually opens up about his moment of weakness. But instead of the version we saw, we change it. None of this stupid Force dyad stuff. I still don't even know what that means, honestly. Luke simply didn't fear Ben's power. He had been exploring the dark side himself. He tried to study the dark side not to use it, but to understand the Force in its entirety. Similar to how he's portrayed in Legends, I think that'd be a good way to continue how it feels like Luke would continue, wanting to understand everything and find out where the Jedi Order went wrong. But, Ben, noticing Luke's slightly growing aggression and increasingly brutal fighting style, starts to adopt similar tactics while on missions with him. From Luke's perspective, it looks like Ben is being seduced to the dark side. He becomes paranoid, convinced Ben is slipping away. Tensions rise until one day, when Ben tries to walk away from an argument, Luke grabs his arm, desperate to get through to him, and Ben, as a reaction, ignites his lightsaber and they begin to duel. At the height of their fight, Luke, as they start fighting, they start giving into the dark side a bit, and Luke, momentarily consumed by the dark side, yellow eyes and all, lashes out, lightsabers crossed into Ben Solo's face. You'll never live up to Anakin, echoing what Rey said to Kylo in Force Awakens. In that moment, Luke realizes, I'm becoming my father. Oh my god, he stops, horrified, tries to apologize, but Ben, shaken and betrayed by the man he once admired, throws Luke into the hut with the Force, causing it to collapse on him, just like in the film. From Ben's point of view, everything Luke taught him now seems hypocritical. He renounces the Jedi, is deeply hurt, but who's there to pick up the pieces? Snoke, manipulating the dark side to drive Luke and Ben from each other to create more tension than there was. Snoke then manipulates Ben Solo into trusting in the dark side and into burning down the temple and killing the rest of Luke's students. And now, Snoke has given a new hero for him to look up to, Darth Vader, and that explains why he reveres his work as Vader so much more than Anakin's at that point. I like this version personally more, not just because I wrote it, but because I like to think it keeps Luke's moment of weakness, but gives it a deeper emotional foundation. It gives Ben a much more understandable, reason to fall. And I don't like that it's just a misunderstanding of, oh, I ignited my lightsaber while you were sleeping, sorry pal. And one last change, I wouldn't make it so Luke dies in this film. I think he should have died in Rise of Skywalker if they were going to have him die at all. But, I know, every sequel film is just known as the one that kills Han, the one that kills Luke, and the one that kills Princess Leia. Now, I want to be clear, I did not hate this film, I do not dislike it, hell, I actually like it. I just don't think it compares to the other films. And when I first heard this film was being made, I thought it was an odd choice. I think Han benefits from being a character with a bit of a murky past, so you don't know if he's lying or telling the truth. Especially when it comes to his character in A New Hope. He's not what you call a good guy. But I appreciate learning more about him. However, I do think there's some changes to be made in this film to make it a bit better. I think Paul Bettany could have done a better job. I just think he feels like a really lame villain in this film. I had to look up his name because I genuinely could not remember what his character was called. And I know, just like when I learned that he was a recast, I understood it a bit more, but I still feel like that's not really an excuse to have a bit of a lame villain. And on top of that, I think the movie should have been grimier, a bit dirtier. And what do I mean by that? Like actually having more of the underbelly of Star Wars shown. Like the big Crimson Dawn thing, it's cool. I liked learning about it. I think it should have been more of like a last, like third act kind of deal instead of those stupid rebels. But I don't know. I feel like it should have taken place on planets like Nar Shaddaa or hell even Coruscant. Now, I really like Woody Harrelson, but I just think he feels a bit miscast in this movie, to be honest. Like, I feel like he was only added because he's Woody Harrelson. I love him as an actor, absolutely love him, but it just feels weird with him in certain scenes. I don't know, the whole "I really hurt my thumbs" scene it just screams Marvel humor, and I just don't care for most Marvel humor these days, honestly. And speaking of Marvel, if there's one thing I can't stand,
If there's one thing I can't stand,
it's that one ginger actress that just keeps appearing in all my favorite media. And no hate to the actress. I don't want to come across like I'm some like oh like I'm sure she's a lovely person. Look, I hated her in Solo. I hated her in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I hated her in Willow. Okay, to be fair, Willow was like a bunch of problems, but like that's just one reason. Um, like yeah, no hate to her, of course, but like stop. I really did like Han in this film. I like that the actor didn't go straight for like a Harrison Ford impression and did his own thing. Like I appreciate that, and he really grew on me over time. I also really enjoyed Kira as a character. I would love to see her reprised in more shows and movies. I know she pops up in the games at one point, but I think she would have been amazing as the bad guy of Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, even though the whole Crimson Dawn thing is a little bit like odd and like too regal for my liking, I did like seeing Maul. He's always fun on screen. And of course, you can't talk about this film without the best casting in this film. I think the best casting for any version of a younger character in Lando. I'm still waiting on that Lando show, but that's fine. I can wait. God, does he steal the show here. He does so much justice to the character that I actually prefer him as with at this point in time than in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. One thing that would have made this film better for me, and you know, you'll never guess, you will never guess, they should have had a Boba Fett cameo. I just think it would have been cool to like build up the rivalry between the two just a little bit more than what we got in like comic books and whatnot. Because not everyone reads the comic books. I don't even read the comic books. Now, don't get me wrong. I like this film. The last 30 minutes or so. I like Qui-Gon. I like Maul. Obi-Wan is perfect casting. I like the music. I don't like all the Gungan trash in the middle of it. Now, I know that we as a collective audience are now saying we appreciate Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd. The bullying and stress they both went through after this film was atrocious. Don't get me wrong. However, I still don't like them in this film. And I feel that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinion. And look, if you like Kid Anakin and Jar Jar, awesome. I will not take that away from you, nor should anyone else. But they just grind my gears in this film. Pretty much all the acting grinds me the wrong way. And let's not forget the original Yoda puppet they used. I used to watch this film a lot as a kid. I just could never get into it except for the final battle. I love the part where Maul and Qui-Gon are fighting and they get separated by the force fields. Like that is in my head rent-free as one of the best Star Wars scenes. Qui-Gon goes into meditation, whereas Maul, he just seethes, paces back and forth like a predator, waiting for that shield to go down. And of course, the Duel of Fate song. I just think that this movie was made to be a kids' film more than the others, and I just can't enjoy it. I can appreciate the pod racer scene, that's cool. I have a lot of friends that love that scene. I just never enjoyed it as much as the others. I know it's sacrilege to put this below other films, but like, fight me. Come on. I remember my dad taking me to see this when it came out back in 2008 in the theaters. I remember leaving the theater thinking, hey, that was pretty good. I actually enjoyed that. And I turned to my dad and goes, well, that was shit. I actually still like this film, and, fight me if you want. I think it's better than some of the Clone Wars episodes. It just, like, look me in the eyes. You look me in the eyes, and you tell me that the episode of Gulliver's Travels with R2-D2 and C-3PO is better. That's right. That's right. You can't. I love seeing all the clones, and honestly, this is our first exposure to Captain Rex, who became a fan favorite, and also, his relationship under the command of Anakin, and how Anakin commands his squadron, which we didn't get to see in the movies, which is great. And of course, we get to be introduced to Ahsoka. Sure, she is annoying and in this and brash, but she's supposed to be. She's meant to be a reflection of Anakin and his immaturity. That's how I've always interpreted it, at least. I mean, as you watch the Clone Wars show, you can enjoy the character progression from Ahsoka being this whiny little brat that gets her men killed, to a battle-hardened veteran in later seasons. In saying all that, I do like this, but god damn, is some of the animation clunky as hell. Everyone seems to just default pose to, like, cross arms and stroke their beard or whatever. And what the hell is this laugh? Like, I'm glad they were able to get the great Christopher Lee back for this movie, and like a lot of other people too, like Ian McDiarmid, you got Samuel L. Jackson, but my least favorite character, and they bring this little shit back too, Rota the Hutt. Look at this little pug-looking thing.
Blink, motherfucker!
If you're like my father, then you'd say, what's this stupid New Hope shit? It's Star Wars. I don't care what Lucas says, it was Star Wars then, it's Star Wars now. I watched this a lot as a kid, and don't get me wrong, it's good. I just feel in comparison to the other films, it's less exciting, especially in these days. I love the intuitive design in the score, of course. It's got this air of ingenuity about it, even if George decided to go back and change things. Like, it still feels like a good movie. I don't knock the film for its first ever lightsaber fight for being lazy by today's standards. I heard someone, they retconned it as Obi-Wan and Vader being so wary of each other, they're basically poking each other with the sabers because they don't want to start shit or whatever. I love the world building as well, and it's basically like the quintessential hero story. I also love the little details of, like, I don't want to call them mistakes, because I feel like it just makes the film better. And, like, for example, you got this scene here with Leia, and you can see the Stormtrooper here, he's got, like, white duct tape on his arm to keep it together. The TIE Fighter pilot is just a Stormtrooper helmet spray painted black. You can see Darth Vader's eyes through the TIE Advance when the red light comes on. And furthermore with Vader, his entire helmet is completely asymmetrical in this film. And of course, you can't talk about this film without talking about the best scene in this entire film. So funny, in fact, that George Lucas even went back and added a sound effect.
Take over.
If I had one nitpick about this film, it's that Lucas, given that he made it up as he went along, he didn't make Vader as feared and respected as much as he is in future media. Like, a lot of games and movies and shows have not Vader as this, like, just like this guy in a black suit. He's like this force of nature. Like in Rebels, when he's nearby, it shows people getting cold and like having condensation. Like, he's just so evil. He just has this like aura around him that just causes fear and like, yeah, well, cold. Duh. That concludes part 1 of 2, I hope. Feel free to like and subscribe, if you want to, I don't mind. Be on the lookout for the next part, which should be dropping very, very soon. Until then, this is the T-Visor, signing out.